Recording now. These are the test notes. This is the video for the test notes for the inequalities test. So number one, I'm just going to go through and tell you basically what's going to be on each part. So let's say that you were buying apples. Let's say the apples were 50 cents each. So $.50. What's the wrong way to write that?
With the cent sign in front of
Yeah,
it,
decimal
then
and a
the
cent sign.
half
No
of a
bueno.
cent.
Or you could have just said 50 cents, but we'll just go like this. And then bananas were 75 cents. And let's say that we wanted we needed to have at least 18 fruits, basically. I'll just say 18 fruits. 18 fruits. And we wanted to spend no more than $5. All you have to do with this one is come up with two inequalities. You have to write two inequalities based on what we read here. So we have two different things that we're talking about. Do you guys see that we're talking about the number of fruits, right? And we're talking about money. So that means we need to have an equation for both of them. So we're going to have an equation about the number, and an inequality about the number, and an inequality about the cost. So let's just start with the number. If we're going to call apples A. Isn't that creative? You guys like that? Yeah? Okay, apples we'll call it A. Bananas, guess what we're going to call it?
B.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and we want to compare that to 18. When it says at least 18 fruits, do we want the number of apples and bananas to be greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to? We want it to be greater than or equal to. Good. Now we're going to talk about the cost. So the apples were 50 cents, so I'm going to do 50.50A plus 0.75B. And how is that going to compare with $5? To be honest, I don't think this is even possible to have 18 fruits with this. Should we say it's $6? Then we don't have to change the number that much. Okay, but how would that compare? How would the money that we spend for the apples and bananas compare to the total number that you have, the amount of money that you have? Does that need to be what you spend? Should it be less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to? Less than or equal to. And that's all you have to do for number one. Come up with two equations just like that, two inequalities. Just like that.
Is this for number one on the test?
Yeah. Yep, that's what this one right here means. Yeah, this is for number one. Okay, numbers 2 through 4, you are going to have to solve. Actually, it's 5 through 6, but the first ones are going to be simple ones. Solve and graph. And then I want to remind you, so maybe you want to put stars on both sides, but if you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to switch, meaning like if you have less than, it's going to become greater than. Or if you had greater than, it would become less than. Yes?
Is this still on question number one?
No, this is numbers 2 through 4.
Okay.
Numbers 2 through 4. Which, by the way, number 1 is 1 standard, so if you don't get that right, you're going to have to redo it. Number 2 through 4 is another standard. You know how in the evaluations it says specifically what they are. Each one of these sections that we're going to do on the notes, which there are 4 sections, is a different standard. So there are 4 total standards on this evaluation. Okay, so here's an example. If we had negative 5x. Okay, 5x is, let's say it was greater than or equal to 35. How are we going to get this x alone? It says negative 5x. What does that mean? What's happening between the negative 5 and the x? It's multiplication. Very good. So we would need to divide. And what are we really dividing by?
Negative.
We're dividing by this negative right here. So since we're going to be dividing by a negative, so this is a negative 5x, and divide this side by negative 5, not x, sorry, negative 5 and negative 5. then what should we do with this inequality? What becomes of this inequality? If since it's greater than or equal to, what should be?
Less than.
Yeah, now it's going to be less than or equal to. So x is going to be left alone on this side because -5 divided by -5 is 1. And then what is 35 divided by -5? -7. Okay, and then the graphs, I think that you know these, but let's just do one or a couple of them just to make sure. So I like to put the number that we're graphing in the middle, -7, and then you have to be careful. What number is to the right of -7? Say it louder. -6, good job. And then on this side? -8. So remember that negatives are kind of opposite of the normal number line, right? Not kind of, they are literally opposite of the normal number line.
Would we get it wrong if we had it?
Had
the
it
wrong way?
switched? Yep, you would. Okay, open or closed?
Close.
It's closed. And how can you tell it's closed?
Because
Because
the
it's
line.
equal.
Yeah, that line underneath. Okay. And then, so it says x is less than -7.
You
Which
go to
number
where
is
it's
less?
pointing.
Yeah, you're going to go to where it's pointing if the x is on the left. In other words, the numbers that are less than -7 are -8. Okay. Another one, if we had 6 is less than 43 plus x, what would I have to do to get that x alone?
Subtract.
Subtract what?
43.
43. Subtract 43. So then we'd get -37 is less than x. So can we use the pointing thing for which way the arrow's supposed to go with this one?
Are you supposed to switch it here?
You don't have to switch it because we didn't divide or multiply by a negative. Good question. Okay, so this is -37, so what's on this side of -37?
36.
-36, and then this side?
-38.
-38. Now this is where you kind of have to read what's happening. This says 37, -37 is less than x. So which number which numbers could x be? Would it be -38 or -36?
-38.
No, actually.
What if?
So basically, when you replace these two numbers with that x, so is this a true statement? -37 is less than -38?
You're asking what's less than.
Yeah. Does that make sense? So since that's not true, we do not want to shade on that side. Does that make sense? So we'd shade on the other side. Open or closed?
Open.
Open, and then we need to shade on this side. So in other words, if the x is on the right side, you have to go opposite of where that points instead. Okay, do you want one more?
Sure.
Okay. Let's do, if we had 5 plus x is less, let's do greater than or equal to 21. So what would I have to do to get the x alone? Subtract 5. So x is greater than or equal to what? Actually, did I have to switch the sign?
No,
No, we didn't. Why did we not have to?
because you're not dividing.
You
by
only
one.
subtracted. So that only happens if you're multiplying or dividing and only if it's a negative. So that's like, so only if it's a negative do you switch. Only if you multiply or divide by a negative. We didn't on this one, but we are going to in the future here. Okay. Okay, and we have this. So then we get 16, right? And do we need to graph it again? Well, I mean, you will have to on the problem, but for your sake on the notes, do you need to?
Sure.
We'll just do one more for good measure. Okay. Open or closed? Closed. Okay, now x is greater than 16. So which one of these two numbers is greater than 16? 17. So shade in that direction. Okay. Good? So that was one standard, those things. They're just simple. And then we will do numbers 5 and 6 are another standard. And they're things like this. So let's say I had negative 6x plus 2 minus 6x is less than 14. Okay. Ideas on what to do? Huh?
Divide.
I personally would combine these like terms because it kind of looks like there's everything, right? So what is, if I have 6 negative x's and I get 6 more negative x's, how many negative x's do I have?
12 negative x.
So 12 negative x's, and then plus 2 is less than 14. Okay, good? Okay, now what do I have to do to get the x alone?
Divide by negative 12.
If I divided by negative 12, I would have to divide each thing by negative 12, and then I would have a 1/6 right there, which I don't want to deal with fractions. Would you agree? So let's do something else instead. What are we going to do? Subtract what?
Well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, subtract the 2 first, and then do the dividing. So we have negative 12x is is less than 12. Okay. Staying up with this time, because this is not going to go on the video right away. Oh, I should have